In week one, we had two overtime games. A plethora of kickers missed game-winning field goals, and other ones made their game-winning kicks. Here to recap everything that happened in week one on Sunday is me, Joel Moran. This is Crunch Time. Sunday of week one was nothing short of exciting. It was a roller coaster ride, and I want to give you guys my most shocking outcomes of Sunday. I mean, there were a lot to talk about, so I had to narrow it down. But the first one being the Bears beating the 49ers. I mean, for one, the field they were playing in was absolutely horrible. You look at the field, when a player stepped on the turf, a splash of water would just come up. That's how bad the conditions were. But the Bears ended up beating the Niners 19-10. And this is shocking because the Niners are a team that we view, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL. And the Bears are one of those teams that everybody thinks, at least consensusly, are one of the worst teams in the NFL. So for them to beat them in week one, I think was a statement game. I think it was the Bears saying to the entire world, stop sleeping on us, although I will continue to sleep. It is just week one. I don't overreact, so I'm not going to overreact to this game. But I think for the Niners, this now leads itself to more quarterback controversy because Trey Lance wasn't good. He completed under 50% of his passes. In the fourth quarter, he was 4 for 13 and had only 40 yards passing. And he threw a late interception to Eddie Jackson that basically sealed the game. Trey Lance wasn't good. And now with Jimmy Garoppolo looking at all of your mistakes, being right there with the clipboard, watching every one of his mistakes. If Trey Lance continues to struggle, which I don't think he will, but if he does, Kyle Shanahan does have a tough decision to make. Now the next shocking outcome, Joe Burrow having 5 turnovers. I would have never imagined this. The Bengals just went to the Super Bowl. There has been talk all offseason about how their season was a fluke. I thought Joe Burrow was going to come out and light up the Steelers' defense, and the defense had their way with Joe Burrow. He had 4 interceptions, 1 fumble loss, and despite this, he still led the Bengals down the field, scored a touchdown, gave Evan McPherson a chance to win the game on an extra point, and the extra point was blocked. Now, this is probably due to the Bengals long snapper being hurt. That matters, and McPherson didn't capitalize. But this still was a stinker for Burrow. It was by far his worst career game in the NFL. And I'm shocked. I mean, in this game, the Bengals offensive line still looked bad. And really, it's a shame because in the offseason, they did get Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and La'el Collins. And for them to allow 7 sacks against the Steelers, it's not a good sign. And it's a bad start to an offensive line that we all thought would have been improved. And the Giants shocked the Titans 21-20. Now, Saquon Barkley had a day. 194 total yards, 8 touchdowns. Brian Daboll used Saquon how he's supposed to be used. And what a moment for Saquon, somebody who has received his fair share of criticism for not playing up to what everybody knows he can play up to. Me included, I've criticized him. And he just showed out, and Brian Daboll used him fantastically. And Saquon, I think, proved in this game that he's back, and he's back to his level. He's back to his form. And Brian Daboll, I think, is making it a point of emphasis to feature him as much as he can in the offense. But what really impressed me about Brian Daboll was going for 2 after the Giants had tied it in the fourth quarter. They could have tied the game, 20-20 going to overtime, but he said, no, we're going for 2. And this was after Daniel Jones had thrown a red zone interception, and Brian Daboll had talked Daniel Jones up and was holding him accountable in the sideline. The back and forth went on for a little while, and Brian Daboll looked angry. And Daniel Jones responded, so a lot of credit to him. And the Giants are now 1-0 for the first time since 2016 because Brian Daboll has changed the culture in New York. Another shocker was the Colts going into overtime with the Texans. The game finished in a tie, 20-20. And the Colts' Week 1 curse continues. They have not won a Week 1 game since 2013, but technically Matt Ryan did end their streak because they had lost every game since 2013 in Week 1 up to now. Matt Ryan comes in, changes the culture, they tie. Kudos to Matt Ryan. The Colts are still going to have a fantastic season. And my last two shockers are Carson Wentz throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns versus the Jaguars. He beat them 28-22, and this was a much-needed redemption game after last year in Week 18. He cost the Colts a shot in the playoffs by losing to Jacksonville. So Week 1 with the Commanders beating Jacksonville, I think this is a great moment for Carson Wentz. And we just witnessed it. Sunday night primetime, Dak Prescott, hand injury, and Dallas just looked bad. That was a shocker to me. I knew they were going to regress, but the offensive line was poor. Receivers couldn't get open. That's including CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. Dallas looked poor all around. The Buccaneers still look great. And a bit of a shocker to me, Julio Jones. He looks like himself again. He had 60 yards receiving and 17 yards rushing. Julio Jones, whenever he got the ball, he looked explosive. And maybe this is Julio Jones's bounce back year. Now, every year, NFL teams tend to bring in new head coaches because the head coaches they previously hired couldn't get the job done. And on Sunday, 8 coaches made their debut, and they went 5-2-1. Dennis Allen with the Saints beat the Falcons, 16-point comeback win. Matt Eberflus beat San Fran with the Bears. Lovie Smith with the Texans tied with Indy. He didn't beat them, but he tied, and that's technically a win in my book because the Texans, talent-wise, should not be competing with the Colts. Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins beat New England and Bill Belichick. Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings, they embarrassed the Green Bay Packers, and Brian Daboll with the Giants beat Tennessee, and he called a 2-point conversion that really sealed the victory for the New York Giants. Doug Peterson and Josh McDaniels were the 2 head coaches that lost, and even in those games, those were close games. The Las Vegas Raiders only lost by a touchdown to the Chargers, and Doug Peterson only lost by 1 score to the Washington Commanders. All around, head coaches that made their debut had a great start, and this was a great start to these new head coaches' career. And next up is Nathaniel Hackett tomorrow, and if his debut is anything like these coaches today, then he's going to have a heck of a debut. On to my final segment, recapping the Sunday slate of games of Week 1. This is called Primetime Take, and my primetime take is Patrick Mahomes put all the doubters to bed that said he wouldn't be the same without Tyreek Hill. Without Tyreek Hill in his first game, without Tyreek Hill. 360 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Patrick Mahomes is the 4th player in the Super Bowl era with 300-plus passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in Week 1. Now, each of the previous 3 went on to win the NFL MVP that season. Dan Marino, 1984. Peyton Manning, 2013. Lamar Jackson, 2019. History shows that a quarterback that does this wins the MVP. So all signs are pointing to Patrick Mahomes winning the MVP this season. I always thought it was a bizarre take to think that Mahomes was just going to regress without Tyreek Hill because the Chiefs still have Travis Kelce, who's the best tight end in football, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who last time when he was the second receiving option on a team had 1,500 yards receiving, Andy Reid, who's one of the best offensive play callers of our generation, and of course, Patrick Mahomes. And this game was very good. Everybody got their fair share of success. MVS, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore even had a reception. Isaiah Pacheco he was really effective running the ball and had a touchdown. So the Chiefs are still going to be the Chiefs, and I have no concerns about them. All in all, in Week 1, I went 9-6. My picks were the Bills over the Rams, the Saints over the Falcons, the Panthers over the Browns. The Browns ended up winning. I was wrong on that. San Fran over the Bears. The Bears won. I was wrong on that. The Bengals over the Steelers. I was wrong on that. The Eagles over the Lions. The Colts over the Texans. I was wrong on that. The Dolphins over the Patriots. The Ravens over the Jets. The Jags over the Commanders. I was wrong on that. KC over Arizona. Chargers over Las Vegas. Vikings over Packers. Titans over Giants. I was wrong on that. Bucks over Cowboys. I was right on that. And let's see if I can go 10-6 tomorrow And my pick is the Broncos over Seattle. So let's see if I can go 10-6. I'm hoping I can. A lot of upsets happened in week 1, but all in all, week 1 was an amazing slate of games. It was nothing short of exciting, and I thoroughly enjoyed week 1 of the 2022 NFL season.